Kalinjar is famous not only as a rugged fort on top of a hill, but also as a sacred place of pilgrimage. It is mentioned in the Vedic literature, in the epics in Ramayana and Mahabharata, and it is believed that anyone who takes a dip in the ponds here, there are dozens of them inside the fort, acquires merit equal to the donation of 1,000 cows. Local legend also tells us that the last Chandela king, Kirti Shah, suffered from a chronic skin disease. He took a bath here in a hot spring-fed pond and was cured of his illness. Even today, there are many temples here which attract devotees who come and take a dip here in these ponds.
Kalinjar Fort is situated 60 kilometers away from Banda in Uttar Pradesh. The fort that we see today may have been built in the medieval period, but it finds regular mention in text and legends from ancient time. Besides serving as a center of cultural activities, it has always been considered of exceptional strategic significance.
Kalinjar had a very important strategic position. Its reputation spread far and wide, so that every advancing military force which wanted to conquer and unite large parts of India wanted to bring it down.
The fort is perched atop a 250-meter high hill. It combines the features of a Giridurg and a Vandurg, a rock fort and a forest fort. Dense forest surrounds it, making it difficult to approach the base of the hill. The whole area is full of ravines and rivulets. The terrain contributes to the aura of mystery that surrounds Kalinjar.
The formidability of Kalinjar fort was a big challenge, and that must have ignited the desire in many military adventurists and military strategists as to how to handle this and how to surmount the difficulty of bringing down a fort like this. And there are very interesting stories of how Kalinjar was captured in the Sultanate period, in the Afghan period, and of course handled later by the Mughals. It was never an easy task, and that may have created the aura of Kalinjar as time progressed.
Nature has gifted Kalinjar with a strong protective shield. The forest, its armor, not easy to pierce. The ramparts are 45 meters tall and raise straight up from the rocky base. Cannonballs fired at them would bounce back after failing to breach them. Invincible Kalinjar presented a formidable challenge to every ambitious Sultan of Delhi.
There is also a trope that the greater the challenge of storming a fort of such reputation, the higher the value put on a military operation or the glory of it. I mean, there are a large number of factors which go into the making of a fort's reputation, which are not necessarily entirely military.
There are 7 gates that provide access to the inner area of the fort. A steep uphill climb has to be negotiated to reach the first gate. The passage from one gate to another has sharp, sudden turns and continues to be steep. These gates were built by different rulers to reinforce the defenses of this citadel.
No military leader would like to spend his military resources on a single fort. They would like to take it as early as possible, and that's why they have this policy of negotiating first and raising the possibility of reward and alliance. And then when all such negotiations failed, they would then lay the siege and try to storm the fort.
The fiercest battle in Kalinjar was fought when Sher Shah Suri assaulted it. When the fort couldn't be subdued after prolonged bombardment, he assumed command of the attacking forces. The fort was captured, but a very heavy price had to be paid. Two small, simple mosques stand within the compound of the fort. One is Kalati and the other is known as Islam Shah Ki Masjid. This was built by Sher Shah's son during his stay here. Kalinjar has a strong tradition of communal harmony, and the folk singers, both Hindus and Muslim, celebrate the heritage of the fort. There are many water bodies within this fort. These fulfilled the requirements of the residents. Kot Tirat is considered sacred and is flanked both by a temple and a mosque. Pilgrims continue to throng and take a holy dip, hoping to gain merit.
कोई ग्रंथ दुनिया का ऐसा पुराना नहीं है हिंदू धर्म से जुड़ा हुआ, संस्कृत जुड़ा, जिसमें कालीजर का जिक्र न हो। इसका आध्यात्मिक, धार्मिक, तांत्रिक हर तरह से महत्व है।
The large hill on which the fort stands has a rock face adorned with a huge Manduk Bhairav statue. This is the fierce form Shiva assumes to annihilate demonic forces. The frightening image is given the name Bhairav, the fierce one. Close by is a beautiful, tranquil image of Parvati.
तो आसन है सत्यनारायण की शाला, वो ऊपर सर लो हिंताला, जहाँ पर बैठ गए मतवाला या से खुशम आई, खुशी भये सब देवता, बोलत जय जय काला, मगन भई थी पार्वती जी, तब पहरावती जय माला।
Mrigdhara is a spring of ever-flowing sweet water. The spout is adorned with images of 7 deer in a row. The Chandel rulers of Kalinjar were devout followers of Shiva, and the Bundelas who reigned after them worshipped Vishnu. It was the Bundelas who constructed the palace-like shrine to worship Vishnu as Venkat. This building has all the features of Bundela architecture.
Most forts in India tell us of tales of a person who played the role of a traitor and opened the gates for an invader. Kalinjar is no exception. As we enter the fort, we see the palace of Mandhata Chaube, who served here as a Kiledar or the commander of the fort during the end of the Mughal period. Ironically, nobody remembers him as a traitor. He is considered a patriot because he opened the gates for the invading armies of Chhattisgarh and restored the control of the fort once again to the Bundelas. For almost 100 years and more, Chhattisgarh and his successors reigned here.
Chaube Mahal is built in the later Bundela style and though small is attractive. This appears to have been built as a sentry outpost but is designed as a comfortable palace. Doors, arches and pillars are all decorated with delicate carvings on stone. Aman Singh Mahal once served as the residence of those who ruled Kalinjar. This too is built in the Bundela Rajput style. Residential rooms are built around a courtyard. This palace houses a rare collection of art objects that tell us the role played by Kalinjar in patronizing arts and crafts. Buildings like this expose the softer aspects of this rugged fort.
While the enemy is being kept at bay by the fort, while there is the martial aspect of it, or the defensive mechanism of it, it is heavy, off-putting, so to speak, to begin with from the outside. But when you enter it, and you enter the inner apartments, which are palace and so on and so forth, then a certain fragrance fills the air as you see it.
Rang Mahal was used by the royal family and the courtiers for entertainment. The large courtyard was used as an open-air stage where the audience seated in the galleries could enjoy music and dance. Some Islamic architectural features like triangular arches can be noticed by the discerning visitor.
If you take into account the entire range of what used to happen within a fort, it is absolutely astounding. There was absolutely nothing that could be happening anywhere else that was not happening there. And yet they provided to the inhabitants a protection against enemies. I can only imagine that they lived under constant threat and danger, but also under constant wonder, because each day would be, if nothing untoward happened in terms of attack on the fort, it would be a day of wonder.
Rani Mahal is in a dilapidated state due to neglect. It is difficult to imagine its original appearance. It is multi-storied and served as the residence for royal ladies, ensuring the required privacy. Interior spaces remain hidden from direct view.
Inside the fort, and there were routes and places, tehkhanas, which people living within the fort would not have access to, not even knowledge of. It's a very, if you like, it can become a metaphor of human life in a manner of speaking. There's a lot in our lives that we do not know of. There are a lot of these interior, hidden, secret areas which we dare not access and touch.
The main attraction of the fort is the Nilkant Mahadev temple. This Shiva shrine is built at the foot of the hill, just outside the inner ramparts. One has to pass through 2 doors and climb down a long flight of steps to reach it. The doors have been decorated with fine carvings. Fortunately, most of the temple has survived intact despite the many invasions this fort has suffered.
Before becoming a great fort, it was actually a Mahatirtha Sthan also. It was a place for ascetics and rishis and maharshis for doing penance. So we can see Lord Shiva in various forms. One is that Jadi, Charmi, Shikandi, Cha Sarvanga, Sarva Bhavana, Haricha Harinashasa, Sarva Bhudhara Prabhu. So you can find Lord Shiva in various forms and in the form of Shivalinga also.
The Shiva shrine is built inside a rock-cut cave. The pavilion outside is badly damaged. Its roof has completely fallen down and only 12 large pillars that held it stand. It is believed that this temple was built in the Gupta period. The pillars have attractive statues of yakshas and gandharvas that once held up the roof. This part of the fort allows us to have a glimpse of ancient Hindu temple architecture.
Babhuti lagavat shankar ke Ahilochan Mada Girijar ke Ahi ki pupkar padi shashi ke to amrat boond giro dhar ke.
No one is barred from entry to this shrine. All his devotees can worship him here and sing his praise. There is a titanic statue of Shiva carved on the wall outside that is 9 meters tall and has 18 arms, wearing a garland of skulls. It leaves the visitor amazed and spellbound.
Ahilochan Mada Girijar ke Ahi ki pupkar padi shashi ke to amrat.
The temple is the heart of it. I think that's really what defines Indian forts, is that there is always a temple or a mosque or a sacred site within. And even long after the fort has ceased to be used for that purpose, the temple continues. And so there is always a connection of the people with their heritage.
Many beautiful statues are strewn in the compound of this temple. Shiva in different aspects and his family members predominate. Other Hindu gods and goddesses are also represented, besides the family members of Shiva. Even those that are broken are compellingly attractive. These statues are part of the priceless heritage of this fort.
Kalinjar, the name, is formed by joining two words, Kal and Jar, suggesting that this is the place where Shiv destroyed death and defied time. It is not surprising that the principal shrine here is dedicated to Nilakanteshwar, a form of Shiva. This place has been a seat of Shaivite worship for centuries, and the custodians of this fort believed that as long as the deity protected them, no enemy, however formidable, could defeat them. And the reputation of the fort was Kal Jai Kalinjar, a fort that nobody could defeat. Many of the buildings here were built during the Gupta period. They are in ruins. The idols, some broken, some intact, are beautiful to look at. And all are waiting for a conservationist who can save them for posterity.
Kalinjar has been badly disfigured. A sense of deep sadness prevails here. Idols and statues that were once objects of worship lie in a damaged state all over the place, abandoned. The invaluable heritage is wasting away due to neglect. It is very distressing that the holy pilgrimage and once invincible fort has been reduced to this sad state.